Hi there, it's Stephen O'Hara here, and I'm telling a story in St Patrick's Cemetery in Craigagh in Cushendun for the Glens of Antrim Storytelling Festival. And the story I'm going to tell right now is the story of the Fuldiew Stone. Now, take yourself back to 1803. At that time, there was a headstone here in the cemetery, and we know that the headstone has been lying flat on the ground since that time, for reasons that will become clear as I continue. Now, inscribed on the headstone in 1803, the only words were the burying place of Charles McAllister. And it was the McAllister family plot, but Charles was the only name on the stone. And Charles had a son whose name was John. John was 18 years old, and he was a sailor. And he was betrothed to be married. And he and his fiancée had agreed that he would take one more voyage, and that while he was gone, she would make the wedding preparations. And on his return, they would have the wedding. And he set sail from Cushendun Bay. His schooner lay in the bay, and he was rowed out to the boat, and off they sailed. Now, his fiancée, whose name we never have discovered, had a sister who lived in Glenravel, and her sister was a seamstress. And it was her plan to go to stay with her sister for a few days, and that together they would make her wedding gown. And as the ship sailed from Cushendun, she set off on a donkey from Cushendun to Glenravel. Now, as you can imagine, in 1803, the infrastructure was not good, and the roads were not good, and a journey of that distance across a mountain road was quite an undertaking, and it was going to take her the best part of a day, or maybe a whole day and part of an evening. And away she went. Now, after just about 3 days at sea, the people of the village gathered round the harbour because they saw a familiar schooner heading round the headland at Torhead, and they knew that something was wrong because the ship was back much too soon. It was destined to be away for several weeks, and it was returning after only 3 days. And more people gathered, and a silence passed through the crowd as they gathered on the harbour because they knew that there was a tragedy. And sure enough, the ship dropped anchor, and they lowered a boat, and then into the boat they lowered on 2 ropes a body wrapped in a white sheet. And then 2 men got into the boat and they rowed to shore. And when they pulled into the harbour, they broke the news to the people that it was the body of young John McAllister. And they'd only been a day out at sea when he had gone aloft to the tallest mast of the ship, and the ship had lurched into a wave, and he had fallen from the mast onto the deck of the ship, and he died. So they ended the voyage there and then, and they brought him home for burial. Now they were in a dilemma, the family, the people, because the fiancée was away in Glenravel, a difficult journey from Cushendun, so they could hold the body for several days and send word and bring the girl home, or they could wake him and bury him and wait for her to return to break the news to her when she came home. Nobody really wanted to take such terrible, sad news to her anyway, so they decided that's what they would do, and they waked him and they buried him, and beneath his father's name they inscribed on the stone, and his son John, aged 18, died 1803. Now, after a few days, the people saw the fiancée arriving back into Cushendun on the donkey. Her satchel was bulging from the beautiful gown that she and her sister had made, and she arrived into the village, and people dropped their heads and their shoulders fell, and people avoided her, and she knew something was wrong. And when she got to her house, they broke the news to her that John had died. Well, she went into such a terrible depression. That evening, she couldn't even be spoken to. She wandered aimlessly round the house, and in fact, in the afternoon, she just wandered off out of the house. The people thought, she's grieving, we need to give her time, and they let her go. They didn't try to stop her. But as the evening wore on and darkness fell, people began to get worried. And her family started searching around the farm buildings, started searching down lanes and loanings that were nearby, but there was no sign of her, and they raised a search party. And they searched through the whole village, and they searched by lamplight through the night. And at morning's light, they arrived here at the cemetery, and they made their way all the way down through the graves to this spot where I'm standing. And here was the stone, and on the top of the stone was lying John McAllister's fiancée. And she had expired. She had passed away in the night. They say she died of a broken heart. When they rolled her body from the stone, they found a stone in her hand, and she had carved during the night a further inscription on the stone. And it's one of the most beautiful pieces of love poetry that you'll ever hear. She had written on the stone, the soft sandstone, "Your ship, love, is moored, head and stern for a Fuldiew." Now, Fuldiew was a very common term for sailors. If you were a sailor, you visited 10 ports. You didn't get paid by the captain in all 10 ports. You waited until you'd made your voyage all the way to your home port, and then you were paid off according to your rank and your service, and the sailors called this receiving their full due. So it was 2 words, but the way that she wrote it, it was written as 1 word, because that's how the people said it, your full due. And it just means you have what's coming to you, you have what you've earned. So the lines, I'll say it again. Your ship, love, is moored head and stern for a full due. And of course she meant much more than just being a sailor. Now, we never found out the girl's name, but the heritage group locally, they commissioned a sculpted seat in Cushendun harbour, and on it they have carved an impression of the girl, and it's known as the Fuldiew seat, and it's in the harbour overlooking the very spot where John embarked and where John was brought home when he had died. So that's the love story of the Fuldiew Stone.